Farzan, I want to ask you something. There was a text message which Trump shared today on Truth Social from Mike Huckabee, the U.S. ambassador to Israel. And the text message seems like a private text message between him and Huckabee. But Huckabee was lavishing praise on Trump for, effectively rising to the moment as he sees it. And he used the example of Truman in 1945, which is a very evocative example for a number of reasons. Um, it seems that the U.S. is moving its assets in place potentially to attack Iran, or at least giving itself the option of launching a very, very significant attack against Iran. What do you see as the possible? Uh, how can I put this? What do you see as a possible series of events if the U.S. does end up attacking Iran? Because what we've heard so far is that American focus would be on the Fordow nuclear plant, it's a fortified underground nuclear facility, very important to the Iranian nuclear program. But as we've seen in the last week, the Israeli attacks have extended far beyond the nuclear program. They've hit core regime functions, and there's no reason necessarily to believe that an American intervention would be limited to Fordo or nuclear sites either. Uh, Given the fact that Iran also does have a forced posture in the Persian Gulf, which is much, much more, at least on paper, far more developed to strike targets in the Gulf, strike potentially Gulf countries or US bases in these countries. And it seems like there was a likelihood or a strong possibility of U.S. casualties if there was a direct confrontation between Iran and the U.S. How could the escalatory or retaliatory cycle play out if the U.S. does start attacking either nuclear sites or sites key to the government, including its leadership?
Yeah. So just a little bit of background, in the policy and the academic space that I operate in, we have a lot of track 2 and track 1.5 diplomacy with current and former officials from various countries. And something I consistently heard from former US officials who had worked with Israel, and in many cases were intensely pro-Israel themselves, was that they understood any Israeli strike on the Iranian nuclear program as just being the start of a process with the intention to eventually bring in U.S. intervention to finish the job, right? Mm, I tend to think along similar lines, which is that I don't think Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu would take the risk of initiating this assault. My sense is that the actual substantive damage and setback of Iran's program has been limited, and now that it's going, it might be kind of supercharged, have more resources put into it, and dispersed, and kind of hardened and further compartmentalized. It might be even harder to pursue. I don't see how you start this without a plan to finish the job. And I think that could, I can see two kind of scenarios based on consultations that I've done with U.S., Israeli, and other officials. The first, which is the Israel go it alone option, would be a commando raid, right? Now, for a commando raid, obviously the air superiority, which is the Israeli Air Force has established in kind of the triangle between the city of Tabriz, Esfahan, and Tehran, in which which is kind of Iran's population and industrial heartland, and which a lot of these locations are located, that allows them then to go in and suppress the local defenses around a major facility like Fordow, and it makes the prospect of a large scale commando raid uh, much better compared to what it would have been in the past, right? In terms of achieving success. But Israel, at the end of the day, using non-nuclear means at least, is not able to destroy a facility like Fordow or newer facilities, for example, one near or chambers or subsets of facilities that Iran is, for example, building near Natanz. Israel does not possess the non-nuclear capability to destroy those from the air. And so there, um, the U.S. would have to come in and finish the job in this second option, which I think is much safer and kind of certain of success than the first option. And to carry out this option, in my view, the way he sells it to President Trump is, listen, this campaign is going great so far. We're reaching kind of the end of the current operational cycle. I think he set a 2-week deadline, and that 2-week deadline might have to do with the cost, ability to replenish fuel, logistics, kind of munitions, and kind of other constraints that they face. So he comes in and says, "Listen, this is one and done." I literally heard a certain think tanker from Washington D.C. say, "Listen, just one bomb." Right, just one more bomb. So the way it could be sold to him, and the way it's probably going to be sold to him, is that, listen, it's not literally one bomb, but it's a one-off operation, which I think, like the Soleimani assassination, it is a type of kind of option that would be attractive to Trump and show the U.S. being tough, and from Trump's perspective, maybe strengthening America's leverage. And you sell it as a one and done operation. Trump goes in, destroys Fordow. The Israelis mop up other nuclear facilities, other kind of officials, other military facilities and infrastructure. And let's keep in mind, they also have what I kind of politely called Mossad's legion of kind of defectors on the ground. It seems to be a massive entity to also support them there, right? They kind of wrap it up in this kind of short window. My sense is that if they then either don't assassinate the senior political leadership and overall leadership, or if they don't make a decisive move at this stage towards regime change, the destruction of Fordow by itself would elicit an Iranian response. It would not be the Samson option or like the overwhelming response, which they're probably saving for a catastrophic apocalyptic regime change scenario. And so what they would likely do is maybe short range ballistic missile strikes on U.S. facilities in the region and increase harassment in the Persian Gulf and around the Strait of Hormuz, maybe slowing traffic, increasing the risk perception of actors of kind of going through there, and then them trying to look for some alternative routes, and maybe sabotage using clandestine means of oil and other energy export facilities in the region. But over the destruction of Fordow by itself, given how things are evolving, and again, the catastrophic failure of Iranian deterrence and Iranian security, I don't necessarily see that as triggering the kind of all-out scenario, which many people, at least in the Persian Gulf side and energy side, which many people are concerned with.
So if there won't be, so if it's unlikely that there will be some major retaliation, and it looks you can sell it to Trump as like one more operation. Seems to me almost guaranteed that it would happen. You never want to make any predictions like that, but it does seem like strongly headed in the direction that the U.S. will hit Fordow. Is that your analysis?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I just don't see how you start this and you don't then finish it. Yeah.
And what does that
sorry,
mean? What does that mean for the?
Sorry,
Yeah. No. Go ahead.
I'll make one caveat. So before Iran's strike, I think it was on the 13th or 14th of April, they called Operation True Promise 1. I wouldn't have predicted that the Islamic Republic would have done an attack of that scale and engaged in such risk-taking behavior, right? But they did. So I should put in this caveat that this is my assessment, and it's probably how it'll be sold to President Trump. But it's possible that the Islamic Republic, as its claims, held back certain capacities, or that it'll indeed feel like if it doesn't use it now, then this is the point to try to stop it, rather than again allow this attrition and degradation to kind of continue over time, right?
What does it mean for the nuclear program if Fordow is destroyed?
Fordow, which is one of the more secure facilities in Iran in terms of being deeply underground, alongside some of the other kind of infrastructure and personnel that were destroyed. I've seen estimates that it'll set back, the destruction of that plus those other things would set back the program a year plus. It's hard to do an exact assessment of, this far out from the end of the campaign. But at the same time, Iran, even before this was happening, had started to divert certain material to other facilities that were known. Probably at this point, it reduces kind of IAEA oversight and kind of knowledge of to the extent that it had of its kind of centrifuge manufacturing, existing centrifuge cascades, a stockpile of enriched uranium and other materials that go into kind of that nuclear fuel cycle life cycle, and it starts to divert it into smaller, more compartmentalized, secretive facilities, and so from there, our estimates will start to fall apart, right? We'll be able to kind of have a sense of it, but on the other hand, we don't know what kind of other support they'll be receiving, how much resources they'll be pumping into this, how much they'll be able to improve or increase security. I'll note that in terms of sabotage within nuclear facilities, from the kind of period of assassination of nuclear scientists in the mid 2000s through Stuxnet and then through some of the major sabotage operations, the Islamic Republic did a major overhaul of its kind of counterintelligence as it relates to nuclear facilities. So there was kind of previously an interagency arrangement, at least for the interior non-air defense part of the facilities, and that a lot of that was then consolidated under what's been called something like the Nuclear Security and Protection Corps, which is a subsidiary element of the Islamic Revolution Guard Corps. And so since there haven't, as far as I've been able to see, successful sabotage operations within a lot of these facilities, although they've successfully killed a lot of scientists, but those were kind of remote attacks. And long range attacks. But sir, maybe actually their counterintelligence has gotten more effective. Maybe they do learn. Maybe some of Israel's bank of kind of intelligence gets used up, and so this process, whether Fordow is destroyed or not, dispersing the program, kind of eliminating any continuity of knowledge that the IAEA or broader Western intelligence community has about the state of Iran's nuclear program, will be somewhat successful. And so Iran will be able to reconstitute a more effective nuclear weapons program. And at that point, pressure for building a bomb, I don't know if a definitive decision's been made on that. I think very few people would know that. But certainly pressure for that to happen. We saw it increase after Operation True Promise 1 and the Israeli strike on the Iranian consulate in Syria in April 2024. After something like this, it's likely, at least within the system, and we'll see maybe even in the broader society, likely that have upward pressure on it. And so we'll see kind of from there. So there the program could be reconstituted. But again, given the catastrophic failures we've seen in Iranian security, I don't know if I have confidence that they have the ability to do that.